Hello and welcome to a special ID Boxing Usyk-Joshua 2 preview show with myself, Rob Tebbutt. Before we get started, as always, please like, comment and subscribe. Turn those notifications on for more boxing content in the build-up to the big fight. But today we have a very special guest and Barry Jones. Welcome, guys. Andy Clarke, always a pleasure to catch up with you.
Thanks very much. Always good to be here.
Nice to see you. And Barry Jones was waiting outside when we got here. Don't know who told him about. What are you doing?
Trying to make loads of noise. Was part. There you go. Nice.
Yeah, always good to have him back. Sort of. How are you, Barry?
Well, I'm alright, mate. I'm alright. You need to be nicer to me, though. Nicer to me.
Why?
I don't know. Why not?
because you're always so nice to me.
No, I'm not. Well, I'm not. Listen, I care about you, so I'm honest. When I say, listen, you look a mess. That's not. I don't want to hurt you. I want to help you. No one else. These people, all your friends, don't tell you how much of a mess you look. You know, and then you walk around looking like a mess. You know, people throwing. I've seen people throwing tomatoes at you earlier on.
Cruel to be kind. Is that what you're going for?
I should have just said that, shouldn't I? That's where.
Instead of calling me a mess, in the first time we've had you in a little while. But no, good to see you, Andy. How are you?
Yeah, very well.
Been busy?
Yeah, fairly.
You a taxi driver? Been busy drive?
Yeah, it's a nice little spell at the minute. I was in Newcastle with Wasserman and Channel 5, and then had Barry on the TalkSport show on Saturday night. I was doing with Gareth. We've got Saudi coming up, so it's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting. I know we're going to talk about it. There's just the whole build-up to that whole thing, everything around it, whether it's our angle from the media and how the rights have gone and all that kind of thing. I'm fascinated to see what we're going to find when we get out there from that angle, really, as to, is it going to be like other Joshua fight weeks have been in the past? I suspect that maybe it won't be, in terms of the amount of us that will be there and just all that kind of logistical stuff, which I don't know how interesting it is for people watching this, to be honest.
Did you go to the Ruiz fight?
I did, yeah, I did.
We were both there.
Yeah. And that was like a normal Joshua fight week.
Yeah.
It was different because obviously, because of where it was and the fact that the press conference centre was built, it was specifically purpose built, and the stadium and all that kind of thing. But in terms of the number of people there, it had that big travelling circus kind of feel to it that his fights have always had. I just wonder whether this will be quite the same, because it's I've never really known a situation like it in terms of the rights and who's doing what and who's in charge. I still don't really know.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting build-up. We obviously were both out for the Ruiz rematch in 2019. God, it feels like a long time ago.
Doesn't it?
Everything's changed quite dramatically since then.
Except your clothes.
Except my clothes. I'm wearing exactly the same clothes that I wore out there. Sort of like an homage to the previous night. Yeah, it's pajamas basically. But yeah, it doesn't have that, like, it just kind of felt like a different venue and obviously a slightly different vibe, but it was all, you know, we knew weeks and weeks out where the fight was going to be shown. We knew weeks and weeks out. Like, we didn't actually have an official announcement until maybe 3 weeks ago when we actually got poster date. Like, we'd all known the date for a long time and the venue, but we hadn't actually had it's been officially announced for a few weeks. Before we get started, Barry, obviously this past weekend, yesterday, you finished up at the Commonwealth Games.
Yeah.
How was all of that? I have to say, I didn't get the chance to catch much of it.
No, you're lazy. No, I'm joking. I was joking aside. You are lazy. It was brilliant. It's my first Commonwealth Games, so I didn't go there as a boxer. I thought I was too big for it. No, I didn't go, and obviously I'd never been as part of the media, and it was amazing, busy. And Andy knows he does a lot of amateur tournaments, and you're doing a lot of fights. I did over 200 fights, I think, commentated on. Yeah, 4 were good. I did a good job on 4 of them, but but it was brilliant, and so you'll get loads of mismatches, and then you'll get some real quality. You know, when you get to the business end, it's really top quality stuff, and it was good. And the home nations did well. Northern Ireland,
amazing, really.
They smashed it. Like, they absolutely smashed it. It was really good, and it's the crowds are different because they're inclusive with every nation, so everyone gets a cheer. And they get behind different fighters, you know, for no reason at all sometimes. And so even though you're the home fight, you get the biggest crowd, you get the biggest cheer, especially, you know, the English fight, like the Delicious Ori.
Yeah.
You know, it was a tremendous atmosphere for his last fight, and it sort of seemed right there. The last medal was an English boxer.
From Birmingham as well.
From Birmingham, yeah, because all that, it seemed really apt, and yeah. It was a great experience, and I hope to do it again. I'll need more work, of course, so I'm always on the scrounge, you know.
Back into Barry Jones's personal.
It was mainly about me. It was mainly about me, you know. The 2022 Commonwealth Games Barry Jones edition was fantastic. It was great though, and see all these young kids, you know, when they got the ring, the smiles on their faces, and it brings you back to when you were young and you were like aspirations of being something, and it was a bit of a special moment for me.
Before we move on, you just mentioned Delicious Ori there, picked up the super heavyweight gold, got the bronze in the Europeans a few months back. I watched his first fight at the games, but I didn't catch the rest of it. How did he box? Potential star there. Obviously, we're going to talk about the heavyweights and a home guy. So, what did you make of him?
I think he got a lovely style and he got a fantastic jab. His jab is heavier than his right hand, which is quite weird. So I think he lacks a bit of pop in that backhand. No, I don't say backhand. In that right hand to be a pro tomorrow, if you like. But there's lots to work. He's young. There's lots to work with. I think so. Potentially, he could be a star. And he's a big guy. He's good looking. I think he looks very approachable. And so I think he'll be.
He got a really really tough draw too, because he got Nigel Paul in his first fight, and Nigel Paul medalled at the World Championships.
But it wasn't a tough fight for him though. It wasn't. No, it was on paper. Yeah.
On paper, it was. Yeah.
But it was an easy fight for him because he's light on his feet. And I think that was the difference, and the other with Lewis Williams, the heavyweight just below. And
I really like him.
Yeah, he's like 6'6" heavyweight, which is cruiserweight, really, isn't it? Yeah. And he's so light on his feet.
Yeah, he's good.
And that's what set them two apart in their respective divisions. They were just so light on their feet that the other guys were slow, plodding. If you could be in front of them, they could do damage, but they never did.
Okay, so that was the amateurs this past weekend. Let's get into. It's not just.
Hang on a minute. What about all the Welsh fighters? Oh, come on.
It's good to have him back, honestly. But anyway, from the amateurs to the very, very top of the pro game. I mean, undisputed, unified heavyweight title fight will be out on fight week. So this weekend in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, Oleksandr Usyk versus Anthony Joshua. I think we all kind of maybe expected the fight to go to Saudi Arabia within sort of 5 minutes of the final bell in the Tottenham Stadium in the first fight. I think that's kind of the general consensus, and that's where we're ending up. Oh, well, me and Andy. But yeah, Andy, I'm going to throw it out there, just a nice generic question. How do you see the fight going?
I think Usyk will win. I think it's a really tough job for Joshua in every conceivable way, really. Everybody seems to think they know what he needs to do to win this fight, in a way that people seem to think they knew, particularly towards the end when Mayweather was building a whole industry around his undefeated record. Everybody seemed to think they knew how to beat him, what the blueprint was, although no one could actually do it. The accepted wisdom was that you needed to put it on him and rough him up and make him uncomfortable. Marcus Maidana did it for about 2 rounds and got an enormous amount of credit for it. And people are saying the same thing about this. And it's not that I disagree with it. It's just how. It's an easy thing to say that he needs to do this and he needs to do that. But how's he going to do it? Because Usyk he's just an all-round fighter who I think has got an answer for pretty much anything that Joshua can throw at him, quite honestly. I'll be interested to see what he looks like when we get out there and what he weighs, because when you see videos of him, he definitely looks bigger. He was 15 stone 11 at Spurs, and you look at him now and you think he's definitely at least 16, you would have thought. Maybe a bit heavier than that, but he's not going to do anything to compromise his mobility, you wouldn't think. I just think it's a really, really, really difficult job for Joshua. Very, very difficult. I was speaking to Cole Frampton at the end of last week. Went down to the press conference for Joyce, Joseph Parker, and we were talking about it. And I said to him, but how does he do this thing that we're all saying he should do? And he came out with an interesting comparison, and one that I'd not heard before, which was, you think about who in recent times has managed to impose a big man fight in really efficient manner, because he can't be too gung-ho and reckless, and he pulled out Vladimir Klitschko. And I thought that was kind of interesting, because I'd not really thought about that before. He maybe needs to be a bit more kind of dynamic than Klitschko was, but Klitschko just used those world-class big fighter basics, if you like, of jab, right hand, very, very efficiently. But then it didn't work against Fury.
Because he was a bigger guy, though, to be fair.
A bigger guy, but a guy who moved more. But I just thought that was an interesting comparison to make, because that is just a big question. It's fine saying that he needs to be more aggressive and he needs to jump on him and he needs to do this and he needs to do that. How's he going to do it? I don't know. I don't know the answer.
No. We're going to hammer into the details, but I just wanted to get like kind of the generic, like the general kind of
slow
outlook.
Down, man.
No,
slow down.
Barry, how do you see the fight going?
Yeah, it's just what Andy said, pretty much. Move on. Okay. But I think most people must gotta see it the same. Nobody wants to upset Joshua in his camp. So a lot of people are saying, "Oh, he can win it. I think he'll win this time," and all that stuff. I can't see. You can only go by what you've already seen in that fight and in their previous fights, and try and guess if they can do a little bit different. Boxing this way and that way is great, but you can only do what you can do. You got to stick to your strengths. I don't think he stuck to his strengths in the first fight, but yeah, I see it the same way, if not a more conclusive fight for Usyk, and possibly a stoppage, And again, I don't think he's going to knock Joshua out, but you can see Usyk being stronger and blocking more and making you pay every time you hit his arm. He hits you with a shot, puts you under pressure, and Joshua being spent after 7-8 rounds, physically tired because he's trying so hard. Maybe trying harder than he did the last time to be more physical. And with that, there's a risk. There's a risk that you gas out. And I think that might be the case. Usyk's a master of that. He makes you work too hard than you want to work all the time. You don't care if the fights are close. And if you all, like Canelo does it, they all do. All these great fighters do it who are not dance around like Lomachenko types. And they just make you work harder than you want to work. And then come the mids, and they have the confidence to know after 4, 5, 6, or whatever long it takes you, that they got plenty in the tank and you haven't, and then they go to work. And he's done it better than maybe most. Through his cruiserweight reign, he did it phenomenally well. That's how he beat everybody up. His heavyweight, it's been more difficult for him, but he's still in that transition of becoming a heavyweight already. That's how amazing it is. He's not even a fully fledged heavyweight yet. He's only had 2, 3 fights.
This will be his fourth.
Fourth, exactly. Unbelievable, isn't it? He's already beat the guy who's got most of the belts already in Joshua. And so I think he beats him again. But, in this weight, more than any other, you've got a puncher's chance. And nobody's unbeatable. And everyone can be hurt if you hit them right. But, you're putting a prediction there on really hope more than a real assessment.
Yeah, I think this kind of notion that Joshua needs to rough him up, stick it on him, so to speak. I can't really recall Joshua ever really doing that in his pro career. Never been a physical fighter using his weight on the inside. He's always been kind of that mid-range, draw the lead, counter right hand, and then
he box his way and get an opening, finish really well.
We've never seen him like kind of one of the more recent examples of it. Tyson Fury against Deontay Wilder, particularly in the second fight and the third fight, very big. He was he big manned Wilder. It's certainly in the second fight, it was all touch, and whenever anything came, just kind of step back and then go again and just keep marching forward. And then when you got the chance on the inside, maul him, glove around the face, like try and disturb him and disrupt him. But I can't ever really remember Anthony Joshua ever doing that.
No, and that's what's quite strange about hearing people say that he needs to go back to the old Joshua and do that, because that old Joshua doesn't exist. It's not real, but that's what you keep kind of hearing, to the point where it becomes a little bit frustrating. I don't disagree that he needs to, as I say, be more dynamic, try and be more aggressive, take a few more chances, but he can't be too open. He's got to trust his chin. He has to trust his chin if he's going to box like that. And does he trust his chin? I don't know that he does after that first fight against Andy Ruiz. And I've got all the admiration in the world for Anthony, because what he's achieved and the amount of time he's been boxing is absolutely extraordinary. And people can try and pick holes as much as they like in this, that and the other. It's been amazing. He took up boxing 4 years before the Olympic Games. And look what he's done since. And there would be no shame in losing to Usyk again, because he's a top level fighter. But I do think there is a gulf between them. And whatever people are prescribing, the way in which he needs to approach it. Sometimes it just can't really be done. It's not ideal to draw comparisons or make analogies with other sports, but I just remember I was still covering football when that Barcelona team came through, and people would say the same thing about them. You know, you need to really put it on and put them under pressure, all the rest of it. And I just always remember hearing an interview with Wayne Rooney after the 2011 Champions League final. United played perfectly well but lost 3-1, and they were never really in it, despite it being 1-1 at half-time. And they were talking to him about it, and he said the problem with playing them, and it's what Barry just said there, he said when you've got the ball, you had to work incredibly hard to keep it, and when they've got it, you have to work incredibly hard to get it back, and all of a sudden you realise you are just totally knackered, and then they just take you apart. It's that kind of scenario. Like Usyk he's a Barcelona, isn't he? Him and Fury are Barcelona, and there's no shame in not being them. Of course, he's going to be convinced he can win, Joshua, because that's who he is. That's how you get to that kind of level. And it'd be phenomenal if he could pull off the victory. It really, really would. But it's just so hard. It's going to be so hard.
Barry, I just want to talk to you about one of the things that you said. You've said it a couple of times in the build-up to a few fights, but you did say it in the build-up to the first fight in London, showing your opponent what you've got as soon as you can in the fight. Whether you're a big puncher, hit him on the arms, hit him on the hips. If you're fast, show him your speed. You know, if you're physically strong, manhandle him in the clinch. 11 seconds into the first round, Oleksandr Usyk lands a southpaw left hand and snaps the head back of Anthony Joshua. He showed Anthony Joshua what he had in that first 11 seconds, and then within the next 20 seconds, he showed him a few more things as well. How important is it that Anthony Joshua makes a good start early in the rematch?
I think it is important just for his confidence, and also just trying to take the confidence away from Usyk. Now, he has to be aggressive, and he has to use that physical strength. It's not always like grabbing hold and rushing him. No, he's not going to do Chisora, but if you can just try and intimidate him with his physical presence, I can't see him doing that, but you've got to be there in front of him. So you've got to be in and out with the feet. That's what Joshua used to do. He'd be in and out. But he'd throw a good jab, and he did it with a big right hand. So you have to hit him anywhere, let him feel it. But you've got to be moving forward with the punches. The problem with Joshua is after the first Ruiz fight, they thought, there's been plenty of flaws there's flaws in every boxer. Let's work on his flaws, which is what you want to do. I've said this about Josh Taylor as well. You work on people's flaws, make him a better all-round fighter, and you open their brain, but sometimes you take away their magic. Now, for fighters, it's different things, but for Joshua, it was like he fought when Joshua used to get tagged, he boxed like someone who was having a street fight. You know, he kept his shape. But when he got hurt, I got to hit him. Now, when you get hit in the street, you don't run away. You either run away or you fire like a lunatic because you know you're in trouble. And that's what he did. When he used to get tagged a little bit, his focus was just, I just got to hurt you now. Now I felt it. I got to hurt you. But after that Ruiz fight, when he gets hit now, he does what I would do. Takes a step back, moves around, tries to, no, that's good. Make sure you're clear and try and go again. But that's no good for him because he's not intimidating. In fact, now, especially that weight, every time I hit him, he backs off.
I think that's a really, really interesting point, because I think it can often happen that people look to strengthen weaknesses to the point where they weaken strengths.
Well, they take away your magic.
Yeah,
I say it was happening with Josh Taylor. They tried to make him a better fighter, which is right, and I've said this all the time. But he was a busy fighter who was better in the risk of getting hurt. He was better at that. He's a volume puncher. He needed to be that. And they took that away, trying to make him a better fighter. So and the same with Joshua, they're doing the right things, but getting the wrong results. And I think with Joshua, you got to go back to basic, keep it simple, like solid jab, solid right hand. And again,
that's where I thought the Klitschko comparison had some value.
But he just didn't have the same timing as Klitschko and patience either.
I think that style that Vladimir was able to develop and cultivate over the years working with Manny Steward was a progression, and it was something that he was able to build into.
Yeah.
He didn't just do it like that, boxing against elite level guys like an Oleksandr Usyk.
Yeah, the circumstances are very different.
I think for Joshua, it's hands incredibly high, which he does most of the time anyway, and somehow try and walk Usyk down to an extent where you're doing sort of what he does in a different way. Every time you feel a shot on your arm, you fire. So don't make him have to see. Well, Usyk puts you under pressure with the front feet, as a cruiserweight especially, and then he hits and counters. So every time you throw a shot, he answers you back and then steals your space a bit more. And then you're having to throw out a necessity rather than when the boxers you want to throw when you're ready. You even if you're super fast in your mind, you've set up that attack. So you're ready, boom, boom, boom. But if someone's forcing you, like I know this because I was a reactive fighter, so I only fire off what you do, and it's difficult because then you lose power, timing, all those things you lose. So if you can, and Usyk makes you do that, and also when you're reacting, you can't regulate your breathing properly. Then you tank tires if you're not used to doing that. Now Usyk does that to you. If you can somehow try and do that to him, I don't know. I'm not a trainer, luckily, so I don't have to explain how you do it. But I think that might be a way where you gotta show your physical presence somehow. And if you could rush him and headbutt him and throw him on the floor and do all these things that people were saying he should do early in the fight, then that makes maybe Usyk think, oh shit. But he can't do that, Joshua. He's not the rough, nasty man. But he needs to be a bit more. They've opened his brain, and he thinks better. That's made him. He overthinks it now. When he gets hit, ooh, I don't like that. Where before he used to get hit and go, yeah, have this then. And there's a risk of you getting knocked out with that. But he was better then than he is now.
I think the only way he can win is if he is prepared to risk getting knocked out.
Yeah, but it's easy to say it.
Oh,
when you're not the one getting in there.
No, but this is the thing. Is like
that's the only way, isn't it?
Very, very few people really do ever roll that dice. And Wilder did it in that third fight, and he very nearly won. Yeah. But in the end, he was so exhausted, he got knocked out. But he was prepared to take it there. But my God, it takes some stones to do that.
But I don't know. You close someone's brain up, like now they've opened him up to thinking on your feet, and it's all great stuff. But because he's not a naturally born boxer like a Fury who's done it all his life, and others, then. He's learned on the job, hasn't he, Joshua?
Yeah.
And tremendous.
And that's the massive difference
tremendously
between
well.
Fury and Usyk.
Yeah. So, he's trying to use his brain, but still, he needs more instruction in the corner than most others, I would imagine, at that level. So, he always thinking, it's a taught thought for him. So, he's been taught how to think now, recently. Be clever, be smart. When you get hit, to get out of the way and use your feet. And in the Ruiz second fight, he boxed really well. It was the right tactic for that fight, but not for him going forward in this fight. I don't think because you can't outbox the boxer, and you have to. I know if you're going forward, you're playing into his hands as such. But that's the only way you can do it.
Yeah,
it's impossible for him to not like. Some of those scores are relatively close. But I think that's just because of the crowd and all that. I didn't see it as a close fight at all, to be honest. And again, it's all that old adage with Usyk is that he don't mind giving away some of those early rounds, which I'm not sure he did, to make you gas out.
It was those middle rounds, wasn't it, that Joshua was able to just get a little bit of a foothold in the fight. Usyk started brilliantly well, and I think it was the 7th round. I think Usyk won the first 3, and then Joshua just nicked the 4th. I think he nicked the 5th, and then.
I was doing a Sky card, and the way I had it was because
there was that key round.
I had Darren next to me, who was working for DAZN, Darren Barker. We both gave Usyk the first 3. I gave Usyk the 4th as well. I thought it was a case of it was Joshua's best round up until that point, but still not quite enough to win it. But Darren gave him the 4th. We both gave him the 5th and the 6th because he started to get up tight and bang to the body. And then in the 7th, he just squashed that momentum.
Yeah, and that was so important.
Massive.
That round, so important. And it's about that kind of experience of knowing where you are in fights and knowing that, it's a 12-round fight and there are some rounds that you have to win and some rounds that aren't necessarily massive.
I had it 9-3 in the end, and I thought it was pretty easy to score. I could see how you would get 8-4.
Yeah.
Darren had 8-4. I could see how you would get that, but I couldn't see how you would get it any closer than that.
But you can see how Usyk is different as a heavyweight now because he doesn't. Before he would always be on you blocking. He's aware of the power. So he does take a little more steps back than he normally would, in his previous reign as a world champion. So I think that you can work on that. He's well aware that they're bigger guys. He's well aware they're bigger guys, and he can't take the same risks that he could as a cruiserweight. So there's a gap there, but it's everything points to Usyk. I can't see how you can see any other way.
Before we move on any further, we've mentioned his name several times, Andy Ruiz Jr. Of course, the last time we were out in Saudi Arabia was to watch him against Anthony Joshua. And we caught up with the former unified heavyweight champion of the world a couple of weeks ago, and here's what he had to say about Anthony Joshua's revenge mission against Oleksandr Usyk.
I mean, if Usyk doesn't do the same thing that I did, I'm sure he does it, he's not, because he's been on top of the game in the cruiserweight. He's been undisputed in the cruiserweight, and I think it could go either way. I know Anthony Joshua has a new trainer, Robert Garcia. He's over there trying to show him the Mexican style, to be aggressive, to throw a lot of punches, to be first, to come at him. But Usyk is an awkward fighter. He's an awkward lefty fighter, and that's exactly why we picked the lefty as well, just in case we have to go through Usyk. So even in the sparring, it's a little tricky, but we adjust to it. And I'm pretty sure if Anthony Joshua's been sparring a lot, because that's exactly what helps us, the sparring and having different styles in there, he could adjust.
What was your experience of fighting in Saudi Arabia? Of course, you're the only heavyweight that's boxed out there with Anthony Joshua. How did you find the whole experience?
It was a lot different, but from the things that I did not do right, from me not training the way that I was supposed to, of me, going here and there, everything happened so fast. My dreams came true. I feel to this day, sometimes I regret of the things that I should have done, and the things that I didn't do. And like I said, I got to climb back up the ladders, and I know now exactly what to do and what not to do. But it was an amazing experience out there in Saudi Arabia. People are really nice. There's a good atmosphere, and it's going to be a hell of a fight out there.
Last quick couple from me, Andy. I appreciate your time. I know you've been doing a lot of media on Anthony Joshua. You mentioned there about not preparing right for that rematch and ultimately losing your heavyweight titles, which was, a dream for yourself from when you were a young boy. Do you feel like you've got unfinished business with AJ? It's 1-1. Is that a fight, a trilogy bout, something that you want in the future?
Of course, that's something that we should have done. Once he beat me over there, there should have been a trilogy. I should have had one more opportunity to get back those belts, and just like how we gave him the opportunity from the rematch, but things happen. He lost. He ended up losing again against Usyk, and the best man wins. But of course, there has to be a trilogy. Even if he loses or he wins, if I lose or if I win, there has to be a trilogy someday and somehow.
So that was Andy Ruiz Jr. looking in good shape, but we've seen that before with him. We'll see how he turns up on the scales on Fight Night against Luis Ortiz in a couple of weeks' time. But I think he feels that it's there for Joshua, but I'm not sure whether or not it's kind of a little bit of hope on his regard. He really wants that third fight. But yeah, just to touch upon what we've said already in this preview, very different feel to this one than the Ruiz rematch. I think the first Ruiz fight, you could pinpoint that's what went wrong. I went for the kill. But Joshua's expression that he used, the beef wasn't done. It took it out the oven. I don't know what he said. But this one's slightly different. Having the first fight, I kind of said this to Eddie after the fight, Eddie Hearn. He was comprehensively outboxed, in my opinion, in the first fight. It wasn't something that you could kind of pinpoint and say, oh, I did this wrong. I just correct that. I box on the outside and I get the belts back.
It's a much more difficult one to explain to yourself. I think when you lose, particularly when you lose for the first time, I know Usyk was a second defeat, but the Ruiz one was I think in psychological terms, you could sell it to yourself and just think, okay, I knocked him down. He wasn't as hurt as I thought he was. I got a bit overeager. And then he caught me with a bit of a weird left hand to the top of the head. So I'm not saying it was lucky, but it was a bit strange. And from that point onwards, I was kind of scrambled, and that's what happened. And I think you can sell that to yourself quite easily, but you can't sell a 12-round schooling. Let's be real. That's what it was. That's a much tougher sell in terms of explaining what happened. I mean, I heard him try it where he said, I watched the fight back and I thought it was 7-5. And so I need to win a couple more rounds and I can win. And I just thought, that isn't what happened.
That's what I was thinking. I seen that interview actually. I did think, I don't know, like if you listen, boxers, we're the biggest liars on the planet. We lie
but
about
you have
weight,
to
our
be.
money.
You have to be.
And no, the camp wasn't great and all this crap. Or the camp was great when it wasn't. And you just, you have to. And also, I can beat that guy when sometimes in reality, you can't. So every fight I've got into, I thought I can't lose.
Yeah,
every single fight
I remember, Macklin's got a good line on it. Matt Macklin. I don't know whether he's stolen it or not, but basically, you're walking that fine line between self-confidence and self-delusion.
Yeah.
All the time. When you're operating at that high level, and you have to, because you can't be telling yourself, "Oh, actually, no, you're right. I don't think I can win this rematch."
Sometimes you will beat the guy who you shouldn't have beat. Sometimes that will happen. It never happened to me, unfortunately. I always got beat by guys who beat me. But it can happen sometimes, and you have to believe in yourself. But that being on boxing is a real. I remember I couldn't get fights, like I couldn't punch. So early in my career, no one want to fight me. They want no. I mean, they're managers, they're boxers, don't care. They fight you every day of the week, and I didn't understand why. I thought, well, I'm not going to knock them out. But it was that they don't want. They'd rather their kid get caught with a good shot and stopped. And go, listen, you just got hold of the shot, you made a mistake. Then be totally outboxed and demoralised. I guess that was it. I don't know.
No, it would have been.
Yeah.
I was a career finisher.
Sonny Edwards says something very similar about the current state of kind of the flyweight division, where it's, you've got, I think more and more so recently, you've seen these punchers down at those smaller weight classes.
Yeah.
But it's one thing, as you say, being stopped. It's another thing being clowned and kind of walked around the ring for 12 rounds. And
you can't make an excuse for it.
And we spoke about this after, in the build-up to, and then after Fury Wilder 2, Fury Wilder 3, where we had all of these kind of crazy excuses, some of them from Deontay Wilder, but it's rationalising. I had to lose because of that, because you can't say he was the better man, because otherwise, what are you doing here? If in your head you're the baddest man on the planet, you're the biggest puncher of all time, and all you have to do is hit somebody. I hit him and he went down. He was down for 13 seconds. Should have been a knockout. You have to rationalise something, because otherwise you lose that. I feel like one of the examples that we'd used for that was Sergei Kovalev, when Kovalev kind of was stopped. Well, when he got stopped by Eleider Alvarez and when he got stopped by Ward in the rematch, it kind of really took something from him. Like the first Ward fight, he could say, "Oh, well, the judges, the this, the that." I felt like he won the fight, but still. But once he got stopped and that aura of invincibility was taken away from him, we couldn't really have any excuses.
Yeah, and if that's what you really trade off,
which
is exactly what it was with Wilder. You're a massive puncher. That's that cloak of invincibility. When somebody rips it away, it's really, really hard. And you have to come up with anything. It looks like we're going to see the rematch, for example, between Josh Taylor, who Barry mentioned, and Jack Catterall. And Josh Taylor, his line is, "No, I watched that fight back and I think I won." Because what else can he say?
Well, once you say it, you got to double down.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
I don't think there's anything wrong with just going, "Listen, I got beat." Like, what can I do? It happens.
Very few people do it, though, don't they? Very few people do it.
I will beat you. I'll beat you, and there's nothing wrong with that. What Joshua needs, what you need, Anthony, like I know, someone to say, "Listen, Anthony, you got beat." Like, let's be honest. Let's lay it on the table. So we want to get you better. We want to get you beat in the rematch. But first of all, accept he beat you, and until you accept that, because again, 7-5. If I win 2 more rounds, 2 more rounds. Well,
what you say in public.
If you catch him with the left hook, you knock him out.
But what you say in public can be different to what you say in private.
Of course,
what you think in private.
So if he's got that, go listen. Like Robert Garcia comes in and says, "Oh, you just got beat, mate. Like you got beat. No, let's work. No, we know that. This is why let's sit down and why you got beat. And go round by round, and it's just stop it there. What did you do that for? Or why didn't you do that? That's what he needs.
Yeah, fresh eyes.
But I don't know, when you're a megastar who's been so successful, that you can sit there when you're the king.
Take that.
When you're the king of the world, which in his world here, and if you can sit there and take that, and you just go.
I mean, you would hope would be the real benefit of bringing in a really experienced guy from the other side.
Just kind of going in there and telling him what he wants to hear. I can't imagine that.
I don't know. It's hard to say, isn't it?
Funny. Like I don't know Robert Garcia. It's
a no-lose gig for Robert Garcia, isn't it? If Joshua somehow wins, he's a genius, or a lot of people will see it like that. If he loses, what could he have done?
Yeah. And also, American trainers, again, not a slight on any one of them, it's just because the experiences they've had with other fighters, and we're starting to get over here, are guns for hire.
Yeah.
I'm a trainer. If you want me, I'll train you. Give me the money, but I don't care about you. I'll move on because you'll leave me. That's what happens. And so they've been traditionally for longer, tougher skinned over it. So, Joshua, why wouldn't I want to train him? It's loads of money. It's a big fight. If he wins, I get all the crap. I get loads. I get bigger fighters coming to me. And if he loses, he lost to a guy beaten before. He just wasn't good enough.
But again, that's making all sorts of excellent points here, Barry. But whether he's willing to listen to somebody or not,
Hang on, let me just enjoy that for a minute. Yes,
the willingness to listen. And is he remaining kind of coachable, whether it's actually physically in terms of the skill sense or mentally? That's a really big thing. And I don't know because we don't see him every day. None of us know. But it is always possible when somebody gets to a certain level that the idea that you could kind of Sir Alex Ferguson style, if you like, sit them down and just say, listen, I've come in from the outside. This is what I saw. Let's not have any more of this. If I win a couple more rounds, you got beat and you got beat well. Let's accept it, grow up and get on with it. But I just don't know whether you can do that with somebody as big as that. I don't know whether he's receptive to that or not these days. I haven't got a clue.
Because early in your career, your trainer's your boss, really. He tells you, you do it. As an amateur, your trainer tells you to do something, you do it. That's it. My trainer told me, my amateur trainer, one of a great guy to be honest, he said, one of them, the main one, I'll slag him off now. But either way, right, he said you can't do any of the sports. When I was like 14, I was getting good at boxing. It's a silly thing to say and a horrible thing to say because I missed out on being, I could have been the greatest rugby player, or basketball was my sport. I was really good at basketball and I could have been, I could have been the NBA now as a mascot or something. But either way.
The Welsh Spud Webb.
But he told me I did it.
Yeah.
He said that, I did that. I'd go down the gym and he'd go, you're boxing tonight. I just run back home, get my gum shield, come back down. Then I'd run back home and said, he asked me to box because my dad had a works van and he wanted a lift to take all the other boys who were boxing. But I mean, you did what you were told. And then as a professional, then I did what you were told. I was with a trainer, Pat Thomas, a lovely guy, and he's a great boxer, and he had me, and he the wrong style for me, but I stuck with it because he was my trainer, he was my boss. Now, once you become a superstar or successful, then you start to see things differently, I think. So, hang on a minute. Because once you get money, you think when you're on power, people who are on, I don't know this, because they don't have money or power, but people who are earning less than you or less stats than you, you don't take their opinion is not as important as someone who's got more than you. I think that's just life, I think. Because you think, hang on, what are you telling me for? Like, you're getting... A lot of people are like that. I'm not, because I've always been poor. But, like, you're telling me what to do. Look at me. This is not saying Joshua's like that, but I think it's a different dynamic in the whole setup then. Once you're a superstar, super famous, mega rich, then you don't have to listen to people who don't say things you don't like.
And particularly in boxing, down the years, in boxing history, there have been countless examples of that, where generally fighters are from humble beginnings and they make it big and they earn the money and they do stop listening. And
Gerald McKellen didn't have Emmanuel Stewart in his corner because he wanted to save a few quid and got his mate. We met at a dog fight or something.
They make the mistakes that people have made in years gone by, and sometimes for a good spell, it mystified me. I just think, how come no one really learns from the mistakes of your predecessors? But nobody ever does, because as a species, we're no different. We haven't really evolved, have we? Humans just make the same mistakes again and again and again.
Could you think?
And in boxing, you see it a lot.
You think your circumstance is unique?
Yeah, that's it. That's not me. I won't do that.
Mine's
that was different.
Mine's different. It's not quite the same there, and that's how it works. And when money becomes involved, you're always trying to save a few quid. But I think him getting Garcia is a good move. I think, potentially. But I still think there's too many voices. If that's the case. Now, Angel Fernandez might be... I don't know. He seems like a good trainer. I've seen some of the kids he's trained at a lower level on other shows I've worked, and they've been good boxers, and he's done good work with them. But I don't... Again, you've got to have one guy. I don't even think having... It's like when a new manager comes into a club and they sack the other manager, but all the other people keep their jobs. The assistant manager and the physio, they'll keep their job, but they know when a new manager comes in, he's bringing a whole new team with him, and you're out. Or a bit of luck, you might not be, because if you don't know you exist, you might just keep your job. But anyone, that's the truth. He wants his own people who he trusts. So, will he have the trust in Angel Fernandez?
It's an interesting dynamic. Of course, we no longer have, Andy Joshua no longer has Rob McCracken, who's been a mentor and a trainer for him for his whole career, amateur and pro. Joby Clayton, who I think Rob McCracken bore some of the brunt of some of Joby Clayton's, I don't know what you would call it, instructions during the rounds, during the fights. Beautiful boxing, Anthony Joshua. Beautiful boxing, AJ.
It was just
lovely.
It was fantasy land.
It was. It was very strange.
It was
very strange.
Fantasy land.
But forget about the corner, because being a good trainer, you might be the best trainer on the planet, and fucking useless in the corner. It's not exclusive that you're a good trainer, a good cornerman. What's his name? Angelo Dundee.
Yeah, I was just about
to say.
It's
a prime example, isn't he?
In the gym and on
didn't
the
really
night,
train anybody, did he? He didn't really train anyone.
But great cornerman.
Yeah, you knew what to say, when to say it. And so no, you're not always like that. So that's sometimes more of a man management or psychological thing, than a good trainer. And so it's a different skill. It's not always exclusively the same thing. So again, I don't know what, but it should be one voice in the corner, and also what's happening in the training camp, because you've got to listen to one guy, and let the other guys tell that guy. Again, that football thing, you're a manager and you've got your team behind you, but unless you say this and go and do that with him, any padbook sparring, you just again should be the one voice telling you what to do.
Well, while we're on the subject, we went down to Loughborough University a few weeks ago. We spoke to Frazier Clarke, of course, long-term amateur teammate, now professional under 258, and also training with Angel Fernandez. And here's what he had to say about the inclusion of Robert Garcia in camp for Anthony Joshua.
I've seen big improvements. I've seen a flip in mentality. I've seen new trainers come in with new ideas, and I've seen him adhere to them ideas. I've seen, the old school style of Robert Garcia. I think that's something that will really help him. Like he's a straight talking ex-world champion who's trained world champions, and I think you got a tough fight. It's a very difficult fight with Usyk. No matter how you butter it, it's a very difficult fight. But I guarantee it's a closer fight than the first one. It's going to be difficult to beat him. He's very good, but he can win 100%. And I believe if he does what he's told to do, he'll win it. He'll knock him out.
Without obviously divulging too much of the secrets of Robert Garcia, him coming into camp, what sort of things can we expect to see him implement with Anthony Joshua on fight night?
I think I can't discredit Angel Fernandez's work, because Robert Garcia hasn't come in and flipped it on its head. What Angel was doing was very good, but I think to have that experienced eye in your corner, a man who takes no bullshit, there's no I want to do this. What Robert comes in and says is what's happening in the gym. If not, Robert gets on the plane and goes back. It's that simple. He's a no-nonsense coach, and I think even Anthony, at the stage of his career, he's got all the money in the world. He's done everything you could possibly want to do as a boxer. If he retired tomorrow, so I think maybe you just need that little foot up your arse, now and then. And I think Robert was the man to come in and do it. I don't want to do an extra 2 minutes on the bag. You're going to do it. You know what I mean? You're going to do it. You're going to do this. You're going to do it as I tell you. So I just think just the straight talking. It's not like I say. It's not wonders that he's doing. It's basics, and just telling him, repeating to him and drilling to him that working hard will beat everything. Tactics and going over stuff. He's almost on repeat, but it's very good stuff.
So that was Big Fraze himself. Got himself a good win a couple of weeks ago down in sunny old Bournemouth. So yeah, there we have it. Angel Fernandez, still very much the hands-on, the lead trainer. Robert Garcia, of course, a trainer of multiple world champions in multiple weight classes. Not heavyweight, but is in there to kind of assist. And, I think it's a good thing, kind of what we touched on earlier, in a sense of don't go and completely try and change him and just go in there and say, right, now you need to be like a compact Mexican fighting on the inside and catching and countering with him on the inside, but making those small changes. So is that more the way to go, or are there still some concerns of potentially too many voices? It's one of the things that was kind of criticised in the first fight that we just spoke about there, was you had Rob McCracken, Angel Fernandez, Joby Clayton. You had kind of a lot of these voices. It's got rid of a couple but brought another one in. So you've still got more than one in the corner, Andy.
Yeah, it all just seems a bit confused to me still, to be honest. I know Angel a little bit. I've been down to the gym to see him, and he's not one to try and catch the limelight. That's not what he's about. He's paid his dues. He's come through amateur boxing, coached at amateur clubs. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a good guy, and I think he's in it for the right reasons. He's not just trying to cling on, if you like, because it's Anthony Joshua, heavyweight champion of the world. I think I think he's very dedicated to his craft, and I think he would be an easy guy to work with, because I don't think there's an ego there from what I can tell from any interaction I've had with him. But I just think when you bring someone in that kind of late, and he did have a bit of a tour of the US gyms, didn't he, to see who he might go with, and it always seemed like it would be an American who was added. There's not that much time to do much technically, I don't think. I think it's maybe just more of a mentality, mindset that Garcia can bring, because he wasn't part of the first defeat. You know, people get scarred by experiences and associate certain things with them, and you would associate that corner with that defeat, particularly given some of the things that were being said during the course of the fight. I was sitting there thinking, someone has surely got to tell him that he's losing. Surely someone has got to tell him that he's losing and that he needs to knock him out. I don't think anyone did.
Just touching on that interview that you spoke about earlier, it was part of the same interview where he'd said, I thought I lost 7-5, and we were talking about it. He said that I felt like I was Muhammad Ali in there. I thought I was looking like Muhammad Ali in there, and you just think
that's the bizarrest thing I've ever heard in boxing, and that crown takes some wearing. That accolade takes some winning, doesn't it? That was just, I mean...
Yeah.
One of the things as well, like with Robert Garcia coming in and the trainer change, I mean, the first fight was September?
So yeah, end of September.
It wasn't announced that it was going to be Robert Garcia until I think sort of March, April time this year. There was still who was talked about? Ronnie Shields, Eddie Reynoso, any other Americans that were kind of...
Tommy Brooks, was he mentioned?
I can't remember. There was the point being there was a lot of names that were in the hat for it, and we seemingly only made a decision 3-4 months out from the fight. Obviously, 3 or 4 months is long enough to prepare for a fight, but is it long enough to prepare for a style change with a new trainer going in against, in a lot of people's opinion, mine included, the best fighter in the world currently?
I just can't see how Garcia, for where he's at in his career as a trainer, and that he will just be giving advice to Angel Fernandez. Do you know what I mean? Just be, because that's what, it's not like having other people come in. They got to be the voice in the ear to the trainer, who then decides whether he should give that advice to you. Really, that's what it should be. But again, it's just bringing more mayhem in. If it's, again, it's just repeat, like they've already said, just place another voice, take one voice out, put another voice in. And also, sometimes you need to be told the same stuff by a different voice. That's why people train. You get stale because it's just the same person all the time. So a new guy coming in, especially a guy with experience, and you might like what he's saying because you've been away to find him pretty much, then you won't listen to Fernandez then. Because you want to listen to this guy all the time. Then he'll take over. Then there's resentment in the camp. And I'm saying that's going to happen. And I know Angel's a great guy, a good trainer, and he doesn't seem like he has an ego at all. But still... there'd be a resentment there. It'd be simmering. No one will say nothing. You know that worst type of thing, like me and you, Rob. I mean, we don't say it, but we, I know I'm that close to taking your side and beating you on points. And it's that sort of simmering thing. You know what I mean, like that. And it might be like that. And it's an uncomfortable atmosphere for you, not for me. But do you know what I mean? And that doesn't help. You want a nice symmetry in the camp, but everything's focused on Joshua. Let's get you better. This is all for you, like that. It might be, we're talking about back end really, because none of us really know. And it might work perfectly and it might be a masterstroke. But we're just talking about what we've seen in past experiences with other fighters and big name fighters who've tried and either reinvent the wheel, it doesn't work, or you're looking for scapegoats and bring other people in that are going to make you this better fighter. That doesn't always work. It does sometimes.
You think of a kind of extreme example. There was all sorts written about that rematch between Leon Spinks and Muhammad Ali, but in that second fight, he had 2 trainers, didn't he? He had George Benton and the other guy's name escapes me, but the plan was that they would alternate who went in the ring with Spinks in between rounds, and halfway through the fight, George Benton just walked out. Left the arena was the story, because he just looked at it and just thought, I can't. This is madness. An extreme example, but Josh, these things do happen.
But boiled down to what the brass said, Joshua does the basics really well. Nice high guard, at his best. Good solid jab. light on his feet, but doesn't dance around. So he's in and out with his feet, and he gets a good solid right hand into play quite often. The problem he has is everything used to work off the jab, and against a really good southpaw, he's not a slick southpaw, as someone else, as I've heard say, not a good southpaw, but he's a southpaw all the same. Like, it's hard to get that jab into play for him. That's the difficult part for him. So he has to try and be able to move his feet to walk him onto the right hand. But he just, you all right, Rob? Yeah. No, pay attention, son. Pay attention. No, welcome. And so I think that's a good sign for him. He does the basics well, and also with Garcia, he likes he's good with aggressive fighters who want to be bullies, push forward and dominate the space. So that might be a good tact. Either way, he needs something that we haven't seen before to beat Usyk.
Going into this rematch, I mean, rightfully, obviously, we're Brits and we're talking a lot about Anthony Joshua. What does Anthony Joshua need to do? Anthony needs to do this. We're assessing his training, his style, his this, his that. Any chance that Oleksandr Usyk looks at the first fight and thinks, I'll beat this guy easy, I'll beat him again, no problem? Any chance that you've covered a lot of his amateur career, we've all covered his pro career? So
you answered the question, but I've got to say, that's exactly what he thinks. Of course it is. No, you go.
Yeah, I think he will think that, but I don't think it will lend itself to any kind of complacency.
That's kind of where I was going with it, yeah.
Because you can be super confident without being complacent, because you know that anything can happen in there. And that's true, as Barry said before, it really can. Boxing can be crazy like that, and that's one of the main reasons, or one of the principal appeals of it. And I think that's always going to be in your mind. And you work so hard to get to a position, I don't see any chance. Well, we know that he hasn't from the shape he's in the gym. He's not going to do what Andy Ruiz did.
Yeah.
Which is just kind of sack off the second fight almost, in terms of the way that he trained, and he turned up 20 stone when he should have been 18. And I think it's something he'll probably regret for. I hope he lets it go, because he was unified heavyweight champion of the world, and that will never not have happened.
First Mexican heavyweight champion.
Exactly. But there's just no way that Usyk's going to do something like that. He wants to stay there for as long as he can. He's too experienced for it. He's too professional for it. And the people around him, there's just no... I just don't see any possibility of him taking his eye off the ball and making it any easier for Joshua than we would necessarily think it's going to be. I just don't see that.
And it's also worth pointing out that they had that kind of eerie confidence in the build-up to the first fight. We had Shane McGuigan in here, who had Lawrence Okoli on the undercard at the time, and he said that sometimes, well, more often than not, he said there's somebody in the team, whether it's the manager, the promoter, the guy who carries the bags, or somebody is at their wits' end. Somebody is nervous, whether it's very rarely the fighter, very rarely the trainer, but somebody in the camp is running around and making a mountain out of a molehill here and there and everywhere. And he just said there was this kind of stoic, cool, we're here to beat Anthony Joshua up, and that's kind of what we're going to do. I mean, Alex Krasiuk had that wonderful line. I mean, shout out Alex Krasiuk of K2 Promotions. I'm a big fan of his over here, where Anthony Joshua had signed the career-long matchroom deal, a career deal. And I remember asking Alex about it. So what do you make of the career-long matchroom deal?
He said the same thing to me.
And he said, oh, so over on Sunday then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Barry,
they were so confident, weren't they?
They were.
And it was that rock solid, like you say, it was that rock solid confidence where when you see it, you know it's real. You know it's I guess it was the same, Egis Klimas, all of them. They just couldn't quite believe that Joshua was such a heavy favourite. I mean, he was a fairly heavy favourite. I think, particularly with the kind of sporting mainstream.
He had to be the favourite, though, I think. Joshua.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying it was wrong that he was.
Because Usyk hadn't looked fantastic.
Yeah.
He had that razor-thin decision over Chisora.
Yeah. Controversial.
Anyone's fight, yeah. But he dominated against Chisora, obviously. That wasn't as close as people made out. But he hadn't looked the same dominant force that he had as a cruiserweight. So you thought with the physical size, Joshua got a chance here. If you can hit him, he can hurt. If you can stop the movement, you can have him in trouble. So he had to be the favourite, but it turned out to be, I don't think it was a hard fight for Usyk. That's the thing. There was a physicality there to be aware of. He was aware of it, but he was aware of it. So he boxed accordingly. He changed his tactic. He wasn't so he was blocking, but he was making sure he was like taking half a step back with the block, just to take the sting out of the shot. And there was but he was, and they come in with the same confidence, like supreme confidence of this fight. But he'll still be smart, because this is, the man's at millions, but this is a different level now. Heavyweight champion of the world puts you on the map, takes you outside of boxing, takes you into the mainstream, beyond just boxing fans or armchair fans. This takes you beyond sport, being the heavyweight champion of the world, possibly. And this also, financially, it's huge. So the motivation for him, it's different for Joshua, because he's already been there and done that financially, and everyone knows who he is. He's the poster boy for boxing for so many years. A fantastic role model for kids. He has been. But no, this is Usyk's time to break into that mould, possibly. So this is new for him. There'll be an intensity for him. Just because he won the first fight, this fight's bigger again. Much bigger.
The fight's much bigger, and also he looks much bigger. We spoke about it a little bit earlier on. We've seen some. I spoke to Alex Krasiuk last night, and he said that he looks like a cyborg.
Speak to him all the time.
Well, Eddie doesn't reply to my messages, so I have to speak to one of them. Hello, Eddie. He won't be watching. But he said that he looks like a cyborg, which is such a wonderful kind of Alex Krasiuk thing to say. But he looks like a big boy. Could that have any kind of bearing on the outcome? We know that Usyk's come from cruiserweight up to heavyweight. He wants to keep that kind of that lightness on his feet. His stamina has always been one of his main attributes as a pro. Could adding the weight hinder him in any way?
It can. It can slow you down dramatically. And not so much slow you down, it can empty your tank as the rounds go on. That's the truth, because you're carrying weight around with you for 12 rounds, and so that can be a factor. But they'll be putting the weight down gradually and working with it. And
it has been that period of time as well.
And I would think that they would, if they're smart, I'm sure they are, training with an intensity at that weight, how he performs. So if they go, hang on, no, he's gassing now after 6 rounds, and he never gasses after 6 rounds, let's take £10 off. Just £10 off. Just take £10 off. I said, no. But maybe that's what they'll do. They'll find his optimum weight. But he obviously, there's intent in him putting on the weight. He wants to be more of a physical specimen, so he doesn't have to adjust. He wants to be the cruiserweight. He wants to be the cruiserweight version at heavyweight. He doesn't want to be able to take a step back and block the shot. He wants to be blocking the shots in range now, like he used to as a cruiserweight, walking you back. He's going to want to stop Joshua. I think he wants to stop him.
There's always been that kind of fascination. We've spoken about it in the past. Is heavyweight's the only weight that you can really be that fascinated about how much they're going to weigh, unless obviously somebody's tight at the weight or going down in weight or something like that. Very kind of rare circumstances. But at heavyweight, Joshua being the kind of prime example of being obsessed with how much is he going to weigh. I think that's a good weight for him. I think this is a good weight for him, and what have you. How about you, Andy? Are you interested to see how heavy Usyk is? Do you think that there's a certain weight that you would not like to see him at? Do you think he needs to kind of alter what he weighed from the first fight, or do you think it doesn't really matter?
I think whatever he comes in at, it'll be done for a reason. Like Barry said, they'll hit on an optimum weight, and I think by the look of him, if he were to weigh in tomorrow or whenever that video was released last week, he would be. It's kind of hard to tell just by looking at somebody, but he was 15-11 last time, and you'd say that he's could be half a stone heavier than that by the look of that. So maybe low 16, something like that. You wouldn't imagine he's going to, all of a sudden turn up on the night 17 stone. You would raise your eyebrows if that happened, because it's a lot heavier. But bit by bit, he's just growing into it. He was 215, then 217, then 221. So I think he would be a bit heavier again, but maybe not hugely so. And you can play games on the day of the weigh-in if you really want to, can't you? It's somebody was telling me about Fury and how he'll like to mess around with his weight.
Drink loads of water. He drank loads of water before the Fury Wilder fight.
Exactly. So he's 276, and then the next time against Dillian White, he's a stone lighter, and we're all like, wow, he must be going for increased mobility. And actually, there wasn't really any difference. It was just what he did that day, probably. So you can indulge in that kind of thing if you want to. I'd imagine Joshua will probably be 17 and a bit, which is like 240, low 240s.
Which kind of what everybody kind of agrees is sort of best weight.
That seems to be, that does seem to be it for him. And if that's the case, then there won't be, in kind of percentage terms, because you've got to remember how big these guys are. a stone difference is not insignificant, but it's not that much.
Yeah, it's not the huge advantage you expect. I think he was getting bigger to be able just to absorb the shots easier. He'll block everything, but I mean, so they don't physically push him back. So he's been more of an anchor when he takes the shot. But cause I think his intent is to walk him down a bit more intently than he did the first time.
He said after the first fight that his training team had basically held him back during the fight, that he wanted to go and stick it on Joshua, and it was really only the last couple of rounds, and particularly the last round, where they said, okay, go get him. And he almost did go and get him. It's funny you should say that about the kind of the games on the day of the fight and the weigh-in and stuff. I remember being over in Saudi for the Ruiz rematch, and people were saying, was Ruiz weighed in with a shirt on, which is never a good sign.
He had a kind of poncho on, didn't he?
But yeah, but people will say maybe he's got weights in his trousers and stuff like that. And we saw him on fight, and I was like, yeah, he did have weights.
It turned out he was just embarrassed, wasn't he?
Yeah. Whenever they're weighing in a shirt or a vest, you think,
I remember that so well, because it was the weighing was on this patch of grass in between. Patch of grass makes it sound terrible, but this nice lawn, manicured lawn in between those two big hotels, and I was stood off to the side of the stage, and then the Mexican Ruiz's team came out of the hotel, and they kind of like beetled up this verge of grass and you know, all ponchos and sombreros, and there was a bit of music. It was just a great sight to see them just like come up the hill, and he stopped and got held before he went on the stage right in front of me, and I looked at him and I just thought, wow, you're big. Yeah, and at that point I just thought, unnecessarily big.
He was
this
very
is great
big.
This is great for Joshua.
He was very big, and Joshua had looked in. He was at his trimmest, wasn't he? And particularly after. I remember when he weighed in when he boxed Carlos Taka.
He's 254. He was 18-2 against Taka.
He was a big boy against Taka.
Michael Hunter told me about Ruiz, because they were in Saudi for quite a while. He was his training partner, he was his sparring partner. And he said he put on more weight over there.
Yeah.
What he was told, they put on. He could have eaten at different hours to what they used to, and the food was different. And he was just eating loads of stuff. I can't remember exactly. It was a couple of years ago he told me this, but yeah, he said he put on most of the weight while he was in Saudi.
I remember the fighter meetings we had. I think that we did them 2 days before the weigh-in. It was quite earlier than normal, and Manny Robles was there. And I remember I asked Manny Robles at the press conference in London, which was I think 14 weeks out, back in the days when you used to have unveiling press conferences 14 weeks out from fights. And I asked him, like, how heavy do you want him to be for the second fight? And he said, I want him to be 18 stone, basically. So 250, I think he said, like 250, that's where I would want him. 250 to 255. And you could see that was unlikely at that point, because we'd seen him. And I said, so you did say that you wanted him at 18, and he's clearly not going to be 18. How's about that then? And he did have a kind of slightly anguished look on his face when he answered it, and you could tell that things had not gone how he wanted them to, and that things had got a bit out of control.
For the first Ruiz fight, he boxed Alexander Dimitrenko.
That's right.
Before then, and he kind of stayed in camp. So he'd boxed him, and then he stayed in camp. He DM'd Eddie. We all know the story, and then the rest is history. But obviously, he didn't stay in camp between the first and the second fight. I think
he didn't.
Far from it. No, yeah, I remember he did the Joe Rogan podcast, and he said, "So what's your training? Big guy, like, what's your training regimen? What do you eat for your diet?" And he's like, just nice and light, like sandwiches and stuff. And he was like, "Sandwiches?" I just remember that little clip and thinking, "Yeah, I'm not sure about this." But no, to go back to the fight, I can't necessarily see Usyk. I mean, obviously he's going to be bigger. It looks as though he's bigger, but I agree. I feel like he would have put the weight on well. Just going to move on. We've spoken at great length, not necessarily here, but in the past, and certainly in the weeks building up to it, while we've been waiting for a fight announcement. All of the uncertainty with regards to the broadcasting, what promotion, what was going to be this. We had Joshua sign an exclusive deal with DAZN. It has landed on Sky Sports. I spoke to Sky Sports Boxing's Adam Smith down in sunny old Bournemouth a couple of weeks ago. Here's what he had to say about the deal to be done for Usyk-Joshua 2. DAZN signing Anthony Joshua, and I think a lot of people, myself included, expected that Joshua-Usyk could potentially go to DAZN. You've just mentioned there about Sky being the bigger and the better platform. Is that what ultimately you feel is a tipping point and getting it to Sky? Of course, you mentioned there going into battle and coming back with the spoils of war, so to speak. What tipped it in Sky's favour, do you think?
I think people have asked me already whether it's vindication that AJ, we get AJ after he left. It's nothing like that. What it is we look at what's right for the Sky business and our customers. Our customers come first. That's what we try and get as many big fights as we can on Sky Sports. That's what we provide, the likes of your Lomachenkos and your Haneys and, great fighters, Shakur Stevenson in that Valdez fight. Wonderful big global fights for Sky Sports, as well as obviously all the action that Boxer have brought in the UK, of which there's been some thunderous stuff already. But we are working with obviously select fighters at the moment, and sometimes you need a big hit. You need to be really involved in that heavyweight division. And I just think that, look, it's right that it's on Sky. I think the Saudis are obviously keen for it to be on our platform because, it's the biggest platform, and obviously Sky box office is robust. It's it's had enormous success over the last 25, 30 years. Nobody does it, I don't think, like the team behind us at Sky. The arsenal is huge. We get 24/7 work with Sky Sports News. The digital and social reach is massive. The entertainment guys get involved, Sky News. There's loads of different arms, and so the promotion in the next 3 weeks will be really intense. So I'm sure they looked at that. Of course it was expensive. It was very expensive. These things are, and you have to look at it and see whether it all makes commercial sense too. But as I say, our customers come first and foremost, and we want to make sure that they get the best that we can offer, and we had the chance of doing it. I want to thank the big bosses at Sky because they got right behind us. They supported us hugely. The head of rights, Rob Selms, was an integral part of this, especially sort of getting all the contracts and everything together, which was a very difficult progress, working with a new company in Skill Challenge. It wasn't sort of contracting with Matchroom, so it was something different and new. But there was a lot of good feeling on both sides. We had some great meetings and dinners, and it's all come out, and now it's official, and we can concentrate on what I hope we do best, which is the boxing side, the storytelling, and it's an easy story to tell because there's so much on the line on August the 20th for both of them and for the world of boxing. So while Tyson Fury's in his sort of self-imposed retirement and doing the bins in Morecambe, and we wait to see him tempted back, all eyes are on Oleksandr Usyk and AJ too, and we can't wait to bring it to the UK, and hopefully with bells on and the razzmatazz we normally associate with a box office fight, Rob.
So that was Adam Smith talking about the fight before the fight, this fight for the broadcast rights. It has landed on Sky Sports. Surprised, I think is fair to say, certainly given the announcement of Anthony Joshua as kind of shareholder, director, I don't know, Joe Markowski, he gets to ride Joe Markowski to the ring or something like that. They give him pretty much everything that they could do at DAZN by the looks of things.
Great company, DAZN.
Great company, DAZN. Make sure you hire Barry Jones. There you go, Barry. Don't say I don't never do anything for you. But anyway,
what have you been there, mate? Don't worry. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying it.
All right. So we'll go to DAZN Boxing's Barry Jones first. Thoughts on it ending up on Sky Sports?
You made a mistake there, Josh. You should have stuck with DAZN. That's the future.
Hey, hang on. Don't you do the podcast? Don't you do the toe to toe with Andy Scott?
Well, Sky's a great option as well, man. It was a great company. The biggest platform out there. But DAZN will be the bigger platform. But right now, I'm confused now. What do I say? Two equally, like, you can't even say that. I've upset somebody.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Stick to amateur boxing from now on.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Sunset and Vine did a great job with the home broadcasters for that.
Right, I'm going to save you. So, what? But the fight has ended up on Sky Sports. Do you think that any of that could have potentially been an unwelcome distraction for Anthony Joshua? He signs this all singing, all dancing deal with DAZN, and now you've got all of this kind of going on around. You don't think he cares
about that? No, he don't care about that. I think that's his team deals with that stuff. Why's he going to care? He probably, I would imagine, he doesn't deal with DAZN, but I imagine that's financially the best way forward for him. Saudi are trying to sell their country, isn't they? So I would imagine that they're going to be like at some tourist thing, and they just want, they want on a platform they think's the biggest. And if they own the rights to it, they can do what they want, can't they? They should have put it on BBC and let us all watch it for free. So they should have done, or ITV.
Barry's just trying to keep involved with every single broadcast out there.
But seriously, I did wonder whether they would do that, because we know the financial
Channel
situation.
5, I finished it. Channel 5 as well.
Fight TV.
Yes, absolutely.
Andy Clarke's Channel 5.
So I did wonder whether we know that the money doesn't. I guess there's never a situation if you're a business person where the money actually doesn't matter, because you have to try and do things by the book or balance the books. But we know that they don't actually have to balance the book. So I did wonder whether they might just think, okay, well, this is about prestige. We want as many people to see this as possible. We'll just almost give it away. But that's quite naive of me, really, to think that they might do that. But it didn't come as we heard whispers, didn't we, from quite a long way out, or at least I did, that they would probably prefer it to be on Sky because more people would see it. The difference is that last time we went over, it was basically a Sky and Matchroom outside broadcast. Sky did everything, really, and they know exactly how to do everything. And this time around, the Saudis have had to take control of the whole thing. So people who were principal players the previous time now aren't. And we'll see what happens when we get over there. I guess it just, for me, the interesting thing is what the people's attitudes towards the fight. Are DAZN really going to cover it in a way that they normally would? Are Matchroom going to approach it promotion-wise in the way that they normally would? Are Sky going to go out there in force in the way that we did the last time? I would imagine not, because it's not a Sky OB as we describe it. It's all just really kind of interesting, the whole mix. It really is. Early in that week, I mean, you're going before me, you're going on Saturday. Early in that week, I'll be quite interested just to have a look around and just see how many people are there, because I don't think it will be as many as the normally is. Like Barry said, I don't think it'll have any effect on Joshua whatsoever. All of his fights have been on Sky, so in a way for him, you could argue that this is maybe the best thing for a fight this size, because there'll be that rock solid familiarity there of things being, I said things being done the way that they would normally be done, but maybe they won't be because Sky aren't in charge. So I'm going around in circles, contradicting myself left, right, and centre.
But it is. I mean, there are so many angles to it that kind of argue for and against a lot of points. You mentioned there about Sky. Sky, they know that they don't have Anthony Joshua really after this fight. This was the one fight that was outside of the exclusive Anthony Joshua DAZN all singing, all dancing deal. Sky, you know,
they got to. I think they spent so much money on getting the rights for it.
The feeling is, Eddie has spoken about this. Is you know, are Sky doing that to just stop DAZN getting it? This is still a big fight that drives subscribers. Are Sky trying to just, not necessarily about Sky wanting it. I'm sure they do want it. Anthony Joshua is still big business, but is it a case of them not wanting DAZN to have it?
I would think so, yeah.
That's kind of how I see it as well.
There'll be a bit of that. There has to be. It's an intensely competitive industry.
And a very...
And I think they'll be very, very confident that it will do very good numbers. The Ruiz rematch did really good numbers. Saudi works for a pay-per-view, because if it was at Wembley, you've got 100,000 people going who aren't going to buy it on pay-per-view. And 100,000 pay-per-views is a lot of pay-per-views. And the time difference works really well, because last time they got in the ring at about midnight, 12:30 local time, which was 9:30, something like that at home, and which was absolutely ideal. So it adds up for them. And this time they don't have to go out there and do all the logistics, because that was a big operation. We had a lot of briefings and meetings and stuff like that before going out. People have been there before, so.
But I think they would like that. Yeah, I still think they would prefer to have that headache, to have control. Of it all. I agree. Especially for Sky, who control everything. They know what they're doing. They've done it for so long.
True, but
to go over there having no control. It's always
stepping into the unknown a little bit, even though we've been out there before and we've been to another fight.
Oh, it is. It's a totally different scenario.
Yeah.
Well, when you go to anywhere, like working for BT or something like that, or wherever, you go to New America, and then you're at the mercy of the home broadcaster for the clips and the highlights and all these things, because they're different.
But the people doing it are Whisper, who do all the F1, which I don't actually know the exact setup, but obviously Sky do F1. So I think I've worked for them, and they 100% know what they're doing. There's absolutely no question of that. It's just whether, how's the relationship between them and the organisers? I don't know. I've got no idea. There's just so many things about it which
interesting, wasn't it?
which are just kind of fascinating, really.
Back to the fight itself.
Yes,
Of course, Eddie Hearn promoting the event. He's been one of the main kind of people who have spoken out against the Sky, DAZN, and I think there's a lot of information out there. The fact is nobody really knows. Nobody really understands kind of the mechanisms and what's gone on behind the scenes with who's done what and what's been agreed here and there. But I think it's fair to say Eddie not thrilled that it's not on DAZN.
No, because I'm sure they would have expected it to be. But we did know, didn't we? And I'm not being wise after the event, that the situation with this was that the Saudis had the rights and they were theirs to do whatever they felt like doing with them. That was the situation. And yeah, he won't be delighted about it. But you're right. Because of social media, people feel like they have the inside track and they know what's happening, but we don't actually, because what gets released on social media is what they're happy for us to know. And Eddie's brilliant at it. The way he gives interviews and his manner within the interview, he makes you feel like he's giving you the inside track, like you're kind of talking to him one-on-one and you're really getting a feel for what's happening. But he's still just putting out there what he wants you to know. And it's the same with everybody else. They're just not as good at it as he is. He'll have wanted it to be on DAZN, of course. And some of the things he said over the last few weeks, people have kind of made fun of him a little bit. But I can understand. I can see it from both sides, basically. I think Frank Smith was chatting last week as well and said, that you look at the impetus, and they both said a similar thing over the last few months, that the impetus that Sky have put behind their boxing relaunch and now going and getting this pay-per-view, where was that energy in the build-up to renegotiations about where Matchroom's future was? I don't know what the energy was because I wasn't in the boardroom or wherever these things took place, but I can, that whole relationship is really, really interesting. And I'm not part of the Sky team for this one. I was in Spurs, and that was a bit of a strange week because Matchroom had already gone their way at that point, and it was Sky's first show that season pre-relaunch. So in this new era, hour as it was at the time for me, first show was back with Matchroom, and it was an odd atmosphere during the week. It wasn't unpleasant or anything like that, but it was strange. And I expect it to be pretty strange next week, although I'm kind of, I can sit in a corner with a cup of tea and just...
we can watch it all unfold, can't we, Andy?
That's it.
So let's move on. Oleksandr Usyk versus Anthony Joshua 2, August the 20th. One man that we can all agree that we would like the winner or loser of that to fight is Tyson Fury, the WBC Ring Magazine and lineal heavyweight champion. We caught up with Hill Steward, his trainer, for his thoughts on Usyk-Joshua 2.
Is there any more a part of you, inside of you, that feels he would come back for that fight, for the undisputed championship of the world?
Tyson's a fighting man, so he loves the sport. He's a heavyweight historian, so yeah, obviously he's watching the Usyk and AJ fight, unlike myself. I'm probably watching golf maybe or something like that, which is something I'm trying to learn more and be a perfectionist at. So, but Tyson's Tyson. How many times do people believe what Tyson says anyway?
That's one of the things, obviously, a lot of people are always questioning as to what is the truth and what isn't with Tyson.
But listen to this. It's the truth. Nobody can tell somebody how they feel when they change their mind, like later on tomorrow. You may say, I'm not hungry today right now, but then tomorrow you're hungry. So because you're not hungry, I don't want any food today, doesn't mean you don't want any food tomorrow.
So is that you trying to say that Tyson's hunger will come back after August 20th?
I'm just saying everybody says something and changes their mind. Everybody's done that before. So when people don't believe Tyson and say, it's just him. He's being normal like everyone else. So, So I'm going to work out New Year's resolution. Don't.
Let's say Tyson does come back for that fight then,
That's
Sugar, say that was to take place in December. Your eyes flickered there. Is that not a possibility?
I'm just thinking, you're saying December, so they're fighting August, September.
Because that was an original date that was being spoken about. So it would be December, January, February.
So my eyes flicker because I'm wondering who you're going to say he's going to fight.
Well, the winner of Usyk or
I'm waiting
Joshua.
to see which one you're going to say.
Listen, it's not down to me to say. But let's say he was to come back at the end of December, whether it be January, February, Usyk-Joshua winner, undisputed title bout. Where would Tyson's legacy stand if he became undisputed heavyweight champion against one of those opponents?
I believe it would stand just as it is now. To me, I feel Tyson's accomplished everything in boxing in the heavyweight division. He's had all the belts, just didn't have them at the same time, which isn't his fault. It's just the way life is. Everybody can't. I believe now we're just now having more undisputed champions in boxing, and then throughout history, for some magical reason, things are aligning differently. But they don't align for everyone, and that path isn't for everyone. So for Tyson, he's done everything in the heavyweight division.
So that was Hill Steward. Very interesting man to interview. Shout out Andy Purwell of ID Boxing. Of course, he did a very good job there. But yeah, I think Sugar, being around Emmanuel Steward over the years, who of course did a lot of media work himself with HBO, and I think he's learned to navigate interviews very, very well. But we were able to get a few bits and pieces out of him. Apparently, he's not going to watch the fight. The first fight, he was doing a barbecue or something in the garden. Not sure how true that is, but there we go. But Tyson Fury will be watching the fight, so that's great news for everybody. Hopefully, he'll be paying on Sky Sports box office, but it seems like, the big retirement, shockingly, may be coming to an end soon, from what Hill Steward was saying there, and we'll see Tyson Fury back in the ring at some stage, whether it's against Derek Chisora or Thor, or hopefully the winner of the fight this weekend. Forgetting when this was going out. Yeah, expect to see Tyson Fury back. Expect to see him want to take on the winner of this fight.
Yes, absolutely. We had Frank Warren on TalkSport on Saturday night, and he basically just said, "Look, of course he's going to box again, and he could box on for a while yet. Why wouldn't he want to fight the winner? It's a massive fight in legacy terms, and everybody loves talking about legacy in boxing, particularly boxers. It's going to make another absolute landslide of money. There's just no way he'll be able to stay away from it, and I think everybody seems to be talking about boxing on December the 17th, whatever happens on Saturday. And he keeps saying that Anthony Joshua is going to box again this year, whatever happens. Fury's saying he's going to box again this year. People have been talking about another fight with Chisora. Even for Fury, with the bandwagon behind him, I see that one being a tough sell, because why?
Who's going to pay for that?
Yeah, that exactly. I think he'd probably be better off staying remotely busy by having a little move around with Thor.
You say who's going to pay for it?
No, people aren't going to pay.
Well, you think?
Oh no, some people.
People now get more cut. People now get more cut. Not every people. I'm making this up. Get more caught up with the promotion than the fight itself. It'll be great. Chisora will be throwing desks, and Fury will be dancing and singing, and I don't care about that crap. But they'll think, that'll be build the promotion, it'll be fantastic. But the fight will be so one-sided.
So one-sided.
Like Chisora, Fury could sit in a stool and beat him. No.
Yeah.
Like literally. Like, I'm not even joking. Like look who beat the last. He boxed southpaw the last time and stopped him. Years ago, when actually Chisora's been better since then.
But so is Fury.
And also, I don't want to see Chisora box again, to be honest. But either way, it's not. But I don't want to see it. And to me, it's no interest to me at all. But Fury, it's that level now that he should only be boxing like Joshua, Usyk. Yeah, that's it. Pretty much.
Pretty much it, didn't it? And it seemed as though you were alluding to Joshua Fury being the fight for the end of the year, regardless of what happens. Is that what you were kind of hinting at?
Not necessarily, but it's. I mean, it's possible. It seems unlikely to me. It seems unlikely to me that.
Does it? Does it have
that having boxed in mid-August, that you would box again in mid-December, because big fights just take so long to organise. And then a fight for undisputed taking place 4 months later, whether it's Joshua or Usyk, I don't really see that. Like that has to be, well, I mean, if that ended up in Saudi, that really would be pretty terrible, to be honest.
We said this after
but it would be a strong possibility, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I see no reason why it wouldn't, to be honest.
Yeah.
No reason why it wouldn't. When it was being talked about it's been talked about for months and months and months, wasn't it? Joshua versus Fury.
Yeah,
before Joshua boxed Usyk.
That
was going to go to Saudi.
Yeah.
And the reasoning or the rationale behind it was, if they're fighting at Wembley, they earn 100 million. What are they going to do with 100 million? That'd be gone before. You don't want these guys. Obviously, we understand the fact that boxing is a very dangerous sport, maximise earning potential, but 100 million is still 100 million. But if you can get 300 million to go and fight in Saudi, then of course you're going to take that. I mean, you can understand that, but it would be a shame for that to not happen in Wembley. But you're saying there, like, it would have to go outside. Have to, ideally, yeah. But if they can take it to Abu Dhabi or Qatar or something like that.
Yeah, my natural thought straight away is that that's in the UK.
Yeah.
But yeah, right, yeah, they'll go somewhere else, won't they? Well, they'll go to the highest bidder, and everyone, because the boxers want so much money that everyone to get paid, they're gonna have to go. They have to get money from somewhere.
Fury-Usyk not being in the UK, you could understand. Fury, if it were to be Fury-Joshua, that not being in the UK it'd be terrible. I understand the money argument, I do, but at the same time,
yes,
it would be terrible. It would be terrible if it was a fight for undisputed, or if it happens a little bit further down the line and it's not, and that's not in the UK. I think there would be a backlash against the fighters. I really do, because they could stop it. They could say, no, listen, if this is going to happen, it has to be at Wembley, and that's easy for me to say because I'm not the one getting in there and potentially turning down a couple of 100 million. But if you are really concerned about legacy, and as I said, the L word is one that fighters, more than a lot of athletes, are pretty obsessed by. You can't have a fight for undisputed between two Brits, or a fight that size between two Brits in Saudi Arabia, and not expect it to tarnish your legacy.
Yeah. Barry?
No, yeah, I agree. I do, especially now, with like the love of the people, especially if Joshua was the darling of British boxing, and now it seems Fury is the darling of British boxing. And all this for the fans, and Fury's been saying, well, I'll fight you for free. We know that's a little rubbish.
He went from wanting half a billion to fighting for free on the BBC. Doesn't he hate the BBC as well?
He's having some fun, isn't he? Like every week.
But either way, all that, because he wants you want to be, I'm fan friendly. Then that's not a fan friendly thing to do. For British boxing, I mean, for worldwide fans, it doesn't matter where it is. For fans around the world, don't care if it's irrelevant. But when you're two British fighters who've been the two of the three dominant fighters in their era, with Wilder being the other one, at heavyweight, not to fight each other in the UK just seems ludicrous, to be fair.
Yeah, it does.
But as always, in anything in life, and certainly in sport, certainly heavyweight boxing, money is the biggest voice.
It's always the loudest voice in the room, isn't it? And like we've all said, we understand that. We do understand that, but anyway, it's a bridge to be crossed, I guess, when we come to it, if we come to it.
I think December the 17th, I think, is the day before the World Cup final, or the day in Qatar.
It's more, who cares about that? It's more importantly, it's 2 days before the 25th anniversary of me winning a world title.
That's a good point. Maybe they'll do it in Swansea.
You're a fucking prick.
What?
Absolute fucking prick.
What
did I turn up for? Let me tell you something now. No, I'm not joking. So I've said to you, I'm sweating my tits off. It's fucking, you turn the air conditioner off in boiling hot, right? I'm trying to regulate my breathing so I don't start sweating, right? I've peed myself, it feels like. And by the way, I've wanted to have a pee for the last 25 minutes, right? And listen to you, and you say that to me, dressed like that, right? Bear in mind, I'm not a fashion icon, by the way, obviously. Look at you and say that to me. Like, you know what I mean? You're one of these guys, like, who hangs around with boxers and thinks he can fight. You're one of those, you are.
I can't fight.
You're a new breed of idiot. That's all you are. New breed of idiot.
But anyway, back to the fight, or the potential fight. That could be something that's a way to promote, World Cup, big event, Middle East.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that is the reason. Maybe, but December the 17th just seems to be this date. I think also Joyce against Joseph Parker there's a rematch clause if Parker wins.
I
and
love a rematch clause.
And what I was
You
hearing,
just got them starting.
what I was hearing was that the rematch would be on December the 17th.
A rematch clause for what? Like, it's a fantastic fight, by the way.
really good.
I know it's a great fight.
Brilliant.
But Parker's people have put it in, and if you're them, you would, because it's what you do, isn't it? Joyce's people have put it in rather, and if you're them,
Actually,
you would.
To be fair, I don't mind this being a rematch clause. Let me tell you why. It doesn't hold up anyone's career. It's for no title. I don't like it. Actually, good for them. I don't like it when it's for world titles, because if these two want to fight each other again, it doesn't matter. It holds up nobody's career. But when the world champions do it, and like Fury and Wilder, for instance, having those 3 fights, everyone's trying to get a shot at that WBC title. Has to just go and sit back and wait, and potentially, go over the other side of the hill in their career, or get beat, or whatever, get stale, whatever it is. And financially, the impact, for not just for the top 2 or 3, for everyone down the line.
Yeah, it's the same with he boxed Ruiz twice, then Pulev was a mandatory, now Usyk twice.
Yeah. But them two, actually, I don't moan about it. Them two, it has no relevance of anything.
The only thing that I was going to say that it does hold up, but you've just said something that's changed that, is the mandatory slot, because you would think that that's going to be some sort of mandatory, but the WBO mandatory has just been observed by Oleksandr Usyk, so they're not going to be calling that anytime soon anyway. So I guess in theory it doesn't hold.
Move them both down. No, if they're not, if one of them was mandatory,
I think they're number 1 and number 2 with the WBO.
And if someone else gets the opportunity, if there's a chance to fight for the title, then just move them 2 down, put someone in front of them.
But I don't think there will be, because that's kind of what I meant there. I think with the WBO having had Usyk as the mandatory, I can't see a mandatory. I think the WBA's next. The last WBA mandatory was the Povetkin fight, which is 2018.
2018, yeah.
So that by the time this is all said and done,
2 years later, Pulev was IBF.
Yeah, and Pulev and Usyk had to wait.
Yeah,
respectively, because of the knock-on effect from the first Ruiz fight.
If we get an undisputed champion, though, surely the belts will then splinter, because they'll get hit with mandatories they don't want, won't they? You mean that's what will happen.
And as always, the governing bodies will enforce mandatories based on what works for them financially. Yeah. And Oleksandr Usyk, while could very well be the best heavyweight in the world, one of the best fighters in the world, if you've got an Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, somebody like that kind of positioning themselves.
Because whoever fights, just say Fury's boxing Usyk or Joshua in December, just say for argument's sake, there's definitely a rematch clause there.
Yeah.
Or 3.
And I think Joshua Fury is the type of fight will always be a big fight regardless of the belts. 99% of the people who are going to be watching that wouldn't be able to tell you what a WBA, WBO, IBF, any of those belts mean.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Okay, well, I think we're probably about there with regards to the preview. Now, I'm going to throw it back to the first question and just wonder. I mean, it seems as though I think everybody's kind of singing from the same hymn sheet with regards to how they expect the fight to play out, the rematch. But has any of our wisdoms changed your mind, Andy? And if not, or if so, what's your actual prediction? If I gave you £1 of Barry's money, what would you put it on?
Nothing we've spoken about has really changed my mind. I'm mindful of the fact that maybe I sound like I'm on Anthony Joshua's case because we're discussing the training setup, but all we're doing here is giving a rational analysis of what we think is going to happen based on what we've seen and what we feel that we know. And that's all you can ever do. Sometimes you see people make predictions and you think, that's just a gut prediction, that's a guess, that's not based on anything. Personally, I'm far too dull and far too logical to go down that route. And
you are.
I am. It is true. I'm a crushingly boring man.
What was the other thing you said? I fell asleep when you said dull.
Logical. So no, I everything points to me towards an Usyk win, and I think he's more likely to win by stoppage, I think, than on points, because I believe that Joshua will go after it. I think he will roll the dice, but it won't work. And in the second half of the fight, he'll get stopped.
Logical Barry Jones?
Yeah, I agree. I concur.
No, okay.
I learned that word in the Commonwealth Games. Concur. concur. Yeah, but I sorry, I agree.
Maybe you misheard it.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
There we go. Get him there for you.
I do. I honestly, I think that Joshua, we will try and be more assertive, and might have a little bit of success here and there. But I think Usyk will. Yeah, he knows him now. Usyk, he has the better brain, boxing brain, the natural boxer. And when you box each other once, you learn things about each other. And it's usually the guy who's won who understands things more, because he's had the better experience. Unless he's arrogant, which I don't think Usyk is. And yeah, I think he's learned more about Joshua now, and that's probably why he's bulking up a little bit more, to realise I just need to be able to absorb punches better. And I think he put Joshua under a lot of pressure, and I think by the midway stage, Joshua was braver than what people give him credit for. Joshua, to his credit, he is a brave man, but he'd be blowing. It'd be a harder fight physically for him, and at the end, I think he gets stopped. Bear in mind, I thought Joshua was going to stop Usyk in the first fight. I did.
A lot of people did.
I thought Usyk would be out boxing would be brilliant, but I just thought the physical size at some point Joshua would be able to make it tell. But now we've seen what's happened before. Then yeah, I think Usyk stops him.
And there's always a possibility with the way Usyk approaches it, is that you don't ever really want to go to the cards if you feel like you don't have to. You think about those first two Fury Wilder fights. Fury boxed brilliantly in that first fight, considering how long he'd been away from that level, and most people felt like he should have got the decision. And I personally was thinking, well, he needs to do the same thing again. And his mindset was, I'm not doing that again, because look what happened. And he went out to stop him. And Usyk, if you're looking at it from a cold, rational, objective point of view, which he will be, he might think to himself, okay, there's no room for complacency here, including it going the distance and me potentially getting jobbed. I need to stop him.
And also at the time when they boxed the first time, he's well aware of the size of Joshua and the power of Joshua, but now he's felt it, or felt some part of it. So we all know, actually, I probably could have been a little bit more assertive there, but he didn't want to take that risk at that time because it was all unknowns. But now he knows what he's like. He's felt the power maybe wane as the fight's gone on, or intensified. I don't know how it felt for him, or the work rate of Joshua, or his concentration, because he's a clever man. You know, his ring IQ is fantastic, Usyk's. So he'll know now what he needs to do, and he might go in there with I need to push him faster. That power wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Or I could see the punches coming, so I could stunt the power earlier. I didn't go on the end of the shots. So you'll learn, or I can sit there a bit bigger now and roll underneath him. I can see it better now. I know what's coming. Because with Joshua, he's not going to throw different punches. Josh does the basics very well. I've said this before. So it works. And for the heavyweight, it's always the best recipe. Do the basics better than anyone else, and you'll be a top level fighter, because the power factor. But now Usyk will see that and go, it's all straight lines with Joshua, so I can work off those straight lines, and I've got more confidence now being there with him to spin closer to the target, not maybe take that step too far away.
That's one thing that we'd said actually after the first fight, was that there seemed to be, in the build up to the fight, this notion that Usyk had never boxed somebody like Anthony Joshua, which is just not really true. In his whole amateur career, you see a lot of fundamentally very sound fighters. Yeah. But Usyk, I mean, we again spoke about this. Getting southpaw sparring is difficult. Getting heavyweight southpaw sparring, very difficult. Getting heavyweight southpaw sparring who can move and do the things that Oleksandr Usyk can do, nigh on impossible. Replicating that model and having the ring IQ and he's a genius. And who he's boxed and how he's boxed them and where he's boxed them. You'd have to think that, yes, Anthony Joshua will kind of feel that he knows more about what he needs to do to Oleksandr Usyk, but you flip that on its head, and the ring IQ and the boxing brain of Usyk will know what he needs to do this time to make it a more emphatic win, which I think he will. I felt like he would win the first fight.
The difference is Joshua, I think, is a good student. So he listens and learns. And he'll do what he's told. I think what he does in the gym, he'll do in the ring, Joshua. But he can't think on his feet. And that's usually a sign that someone who's done it from a very young age. Usually, not always. There's special people, but that's nothing wrong with that. So he can follow instructions and he can do what he's told, and he's committed to it. But Usyk can think on his feet. Yeah, and at that level, that's always the difference between a good fighter and a great fighter. That he can think on it when things don't work out. Everyone got a plan to go in the ring. But I think it's that thing on the feet and adapting and changing the pattern. You know, like Hazard did with Kessler. Other fighters have done it, you know, tremendously over the years, and you see that and you go, oh, this is what I have to do to beat him, and then he does something different, and you can adapt your style because all you've been training for the last 8 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever it is he does this, I'll do that. And he does something different, and you go, fuck, what am I going to do now?
Yeah, that for me is the dividing line between a really good fighter and an exceptional fighter, because they can all do that. I think Usyk started when he was about 15, which isn't super young, but he's obviously just got that aptitude. Fury started when he was probably 5 or 6, and that's why I don't think that Anthony can beat either of those two, because they can do that and he can't. And again, not that many people can do it. And I mentioned Carl Frampton earlier, and just something he said in the build-up to his fight with Scott Quigg kind of stuck with me when I was thinking about this recently. And I remember, you know, the press conferences were all great fun and all of that. And he just said to Quigg at one point, was to the effect, you can't beat me because I can figure out what to do, whereas you have to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And it's that's it, isn't it? That's the difference. He's just not been boxing that long, Joshua. And as I said, what he's achieved, given that fact, is mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing. But
listen, Joshua's like, I can't see who can win the fight unless he knocks him out. That's the truth of it. But Joshua's a good fighter.
Yeah.
And we forget that. And just go with saying he can't win the fight. He's in against a guy who's better than him. That's fine.
Yeah.
He's not saying he's rubbish. That's when people get confused. Oh, you think he's rubbish? I don't think he's rubbish. He's good. But this guy's better.
Arguably the best fighter in the world, Oleksandr Usyk.
Yeah.
You know, to not beat the best fighter in the world, you know, there isn't any shame in that.
Rodriguez is the best fighter in the world now. I've changed my mind.
No, but that's exactly it, and you know, it is a bit of a frustration for me that sports fans generally, I think, in recent times have become more, well, society in general has become more binary. Either you support something or you don't. Either someone's the best or they're shit. And you know, people have done it to Ricky Hatton down the years because he couldn't beat Mayweather and Pacquiao.
Yeah. Prime Mayweather and prime Pacquiao as well.
Just,
best
version. And that's kind of what we're talking about here.
He couldn't even beat Mayweather and Pacquiao.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. I don't think
Joshua put the gloves on.
I don't think Joshua could beat Usyk or Fury, but to an extent, it's still you look at the career and the pressure he's been under and the way that he's kind of carried British boxing up to a new level and all of those other things, and there's an enormous amount to be proud of there.
Maybe that should cover us for people who want to.
Before we wrap up, we have been trying to wrap this up for a little while, but before we wrap it up, somebody asked me a good question about this the other day, so I'll ask it to you guys. Playing devil's advocate, if Anthony Joshua goes out there and he beats Oleksandr Usyk, where does that rank among your... I mean, one of the big obvious examples is Lennox Lewis versus Hasim Rahman, going straight into a rematch that obviously, again, different because he was caught with a shot. He wasn't comprehensively outboxed, but kind of ignoring that in a more general note, where would this win match up for Anthony Joshua compared to those... Forget rematches, great heavyweight wins.
I think it would be right up there, to be honest, because of the level that we feel that Usyk is at. The counter argument you could have to that is that he's not had many fights at heavyweight, so he doesn't have this roster of names on his record.
Anthony Joshua on his record, though.
Yeah, but that's the
Chaz with the
performance. Is that one fight?
Who's a top 12 fighter in the world.
Yeah, but I completely get what you're saying. Somebody also asked me about where would you put it with Anthony Joshua beating Oleksandr Usyk. Where does that rank with Fury beating Klitschko and Fury beating Wilder the second time? Where does that rank for you guys?
I think Fury beating Klitschko was massive because he was undefeated in nearly 10 years, and
very few people gave.
And he went away from home.
And he was away from home, and he won the fight comfortably. That comfortably that they couldn't not give it to him. I'm not cussing Germany there. It's just as difficult to win anywhere away from home as it is here.
Yeah, you know.
But yeah, that was a huge win, and comparatively, kind of went under the radar a bit. I always think that win for Fury against Klitschko will, in every sense, because you look at the run that Klitschko was on and all the rest of it will take a lot of beating.
And it also opened up the division after that as well.
Yeah.
What came after that? Anthony Joshua beating Charles Martin.
After, didn't he?
Yeah.
Sure.
Barry, same question to you.
And also, I'm going back to the Fury Wilder second fight. It depends how Joshua. If Joshua can do the same thing and go knock Usyk out early, or no, just beat him up like Fury did to Wilder, then it's right up there with that. If he beats him, it's a massive win for him. It is great. And also, for this whole, to be fair, we don't talk about Lennox Lewis as an all-time great heavyweight, and he was, and he avenged his only defeats. That's what Joshua would be doing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's no mean feat. And also, one guy knocked him out. Wasn't one of the biggest upsets in world boxing at that time, and maybe not in history, but it's good. It's not far off. This is in the top 30 probably, and you just think there was to come back from that. Because all of a sudden he was this invincible monster.
Yeah.
And then this short little chubby Mexican, that's how it was sold at the time. It was, and he was actually a really schooled amateur, by the way, and a good professional, and goes and beats him up. It was like, wow. Then you come back from that.
Yeah. And history was well and truly against him on that one. People don't take immediate rematches against people who've knocked you out, particularly
in the heavyweight division. But then he got schooled. Whatever he said about the scorecards, he got schooled in the last one, and he would have known it and felt it in there. And if he can come back from that, that says so much for him. It says so much about the man. It does. And you'd have to go. Listen, that's one of the best comebacks, I would say. Not the best, nowhere near the top 10 or anything, but it's one of the best comebacks that we've had in recent years.
Okay, well, let us know how you feel Anthony Joshua is going to get on against Oleksandr Usyk as he seeks to reclaim the unified heavyweight championship, sir. Not the undisputed heavyweight championship. I keep having to catch myself there. Maybe we'll get an undisputed fight sometime soon. But thank you very much for stopping by and checking out the ID Boxing Usyk-Joshua 2 preview, coming to you Saturday, 20th of August from sunny, very sunny Saudi Arabia. Andy Clarke, Barry Jones, thank you both for showing up today and giving us your excellent insight. Let us know what you think about the fight in the comments below. Thanks very much for stopping by, and I'm sure we'll catch up with you soon.